sure.
Yeah, sure. I don't have a problem.
Okay.
Okay. So, let me just text him now.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, you're
Yes,
audible.
Am I? Yeah, I think it's working now. Yeah, it's working fine now, right? You can hear me.
You're
Yes.
audible to me, Prashant.
Yes, sir.
Perfect, perfect.
Okay. Let's start now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, so good evening, everyone present here. I hope you're all doing well today. It is an honor for BITS Hyderabad Embryo to host an inspiring session for all civil services enthusiasts with our alumni who recently appeared for the UPSC examination and performed exceptionally.
Whenever we hear about UPSC exams and becoming a civil servant, what most of us would immediately think of is a big bungalow, red light cars, and many more such perks. But I'm sure that our honored speakers today would like to tell you that all of it is worth it at the end and all their hard work paid off.
So without further delay, I, Om,
And I, Sanvi,
your hosts for this evening, would like to introduce you to our speakers. First of all, we have Ms. Akshaya Babu, a BITS Pilani alumnus from class 2017, securing an impressive rank of 168 after having appeared for 2 UPSC interviews. And our second speaker for the evening is Mr. Prashant Sharma, an alumnus from Goa Campus, bagging 259th position after having clearing UPSC back in 2020 and giving it another go.
good evening. And it is a pleasure for both of us to host you today. So, without further ado, let's get started with some of the questions we'd like you to answer so that the future aspirants can get an idea of what the experience is like. So, I'd like to begin by asking you that what does civil service mean to you as an individual, and how would you summarize your journey?
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. Because I did get a lot of invites, but I was very excited when BITS came because uh, throughout this journey for me in civil services, BITSians have been a pillar of strength. All those who have motivated me and given me guidance, who have been my mentors, were all coincidentally BITSians. So having said that, so civil services for me is a job where our lives are very close to public. So our public interactions on an everyday basis is very high, and the job that we do has a huge public impact, irrespective of the service that one gets into. It can be IAS, IPS, Indian Foreign Service, Indian Revenue Service, and so on. So irrespective of the service, the kind of job that we do is not only interesting, but it's useful to the public on an everyday basis. So that was also one of the major motivators for me when I decided to prepare for this exam. So it's about the kind of impact that one wants to leave in their professional life. So for me, I wanted something that had a tangible impact on the ground. That is why I chose to get this exam. And that was the initial motivator. If you know. And the journey for me has been I've started giving this exam since 2019, where I was like working. I was working and I was continuously giving this exam. Yeah, so and I cleared the prelims in my first attempt itself. So I thought, okay, I can do this. I have some aptitude in this. So then I quit my job and I continued giving. So in my second attempt, I gave an interview, which I unfortunately couldn't make it to the final list by 10 marks. And again, I gave it another go, and now I have scored 160, secured 168 rank. So it really is a great feeling at the end, I'd say.
Frankly, it was quite inspiring to hear your viewpoint and the fact that you were really excited to give this interview just because the BITSians invited you. Really, it was a really good moment for all of us.
Yeah. So, like, I guess that once we graduate, we realize the impact of that BITSians have left across sectors. And wherever we choose to work, irrespective of the sector, you'll always find BITSians who are already there, who have established their ground, and they try and help the next generation. So I have been a beneficiary of this, and I really look forward to sharing my journey so it can help others.
We're deeply obliged for that.
Yeah, ma'am. So my next question would be like being from an engineering background, you would had several career options. But what was the moment that you decided that civil services is what you wanted to do, and how difficult was the transition from engineering to preparing for the exam?
Okay, you're right, because coming from an engineering background, I was initially placed in an electronics company. I was working in Johnson Controls in Pune, and I did enjoy my job very well, but I realized that there was something missing. I did enjoy my job, but I was asking myself the question, is this I want to do for the next 30, 40 years? So when that question came, I reevaluated my aptitude in engineering itself. So there I found that I did enjoy it, but I did not have that much interest to give it my best, because one has to give their best in whatever profession they take up. It can be in engineering, it can be in civil services, anywhere that they go. So, and I heard about this exam from one of my colleagues who were preparing, and then I was also reading a lot on different blogs about what kind of work that civil servants do. So once I got an insight into it, I decided that okay, let's give it a try. So and then I started studying for this exam. So once I started studying, my interest grew exponentially in this area. So that's when I decided, okay, I have a lot of interest in this. So this can be an alternate. This can be the right career choice. And I'd also keep working. So that was again a proof that I had some aptitude in my interest area. That is how I started. But yeah, the career. I would tell you right from the first that the transition is difficult, because we as engineers we're taught to think in 1 or 0 in a very logical way. But if you look at the civil services exam, the mains paper, which has a major marking, which has a major weightage, is a subjective paper, which we are usually not taught to write in engineering. Which probably, I'm not saying all, but probably somebody from an arts background or from humanities background can write those kind of answers, which require diverse thinking around abstract concepts, because we're taught logical concepts as engineers. And there's also an optional subject for people who do not know about this exam. There's also an optional subject that you have to choose in your mains exam, which suppose you happen to choose a humanities subject and not an engineering subject, and again you need to take coaching for it to gain some mastery. So all of these hurdles come for a engineering graduate. You can even choose your own engineering subject, but depends on how much interest you have in it. So I would say that the transition is slightly difficult, but again, a lot of people who clear are engineers. So it's so I think the aptitude of thinking, logical thinking, giving our best, studying before the exam, those kind of things does help in this exam to some extent. So I think it's not about our background after a point. If you have interest in this, if you're ready to work hard, if you're consistent in your efforts, you can do this.
That's really great, ma'am. Like this is going to be a insight for all the interested like BITSians who are watching us right now.
Yeah.
Do look up the format of this exam for those who are initially interested right now. So there are 3 stages for this exam: the preliminary stage, the main stage, and the interview stage. The preliminary stage is a qualification stage where it's like.
So, all right. How do the question answer happen? Like you asked Akshaya first, or you asked the same questions to both of us?
We have some common questions. We have some specific questions.
Yes.
All right, all right.
Yeah. So first of all, sir, good evening to you.
Evening.
And we are so sorry for all the technical issues that have been
No issue, no
happening
issue. That's
right
fine.
now.
That happens, no issue.
We actually asked Akshaya ma'am will ask the same question to you, that what does civil service mean to you as an individual, and how would you summarize your journey?
Certainly. So in my case, I was already in a service. I cleared civil service exam in 2020 as well, and I joined a service called DANIX, which is Delhi and Union Territory Civil Service. So I started preparation during my college days only, like last year of my college days. Civil service to me is a service to the nation. It is a very unique sort of a service where the purpose is not only to do a normal job like other people do, right? There are corporate jobs also. It is different from that because the orientation of work is very much oriented towards the public service. So that is what makes it very unique, and that is what civil service personally means to me. And my journey has been really good. I think I've grown as a person during the course of the journey. I've learned a lot of things. And at the same time, I also worked for about 2-3 years in between. And I joined the service in 2020. So this preparation I did along with my service. And it's been really fruitful and a good experience overall.
Great to hear.
Yes.
That's great, sir. Sir, again, another question was, how was the transition coming from an engineering background? How was the transition from engineering to preparing for the UPSC? And how was your journey with that?
Because as I did engineering, I opted for science in 11th and 12th. And when it comes to UPSC, I think we have to do a lot of humanities subjects also, be it political science, geography, etc. So initially that was troublesome, maybe for the first 2-3 months, because the approach was very different. And my optional is economics. So even doing that subject was a bit of a challenge, but I opted for some economics courses during the course of my college, open electives as we have in BITS. So that helped me. But of course, the transition, it took me about 2-3 months to get used to those subjects. But eventually in my subsequent attempts, I think I got comfortable with those subjects.
Okay, sir. That's a great insight.
The next question that I'd like to ask, that if someone has made up their mind that, okay, this is what they want to pursue, then what is the ideal time to start their preparation? Should they start their preparation from their pre-final year or the final year? And also one more thing, that if a student has bagged a summer internship of their choice, then should they begin preparing at the same time?
Should I answer or Akshaya?
Any one of you can go first.
Okay,
Yeah, let me answer first.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I think if you have an interest in civil services, if you think it's something you can do, you can spend some free time in your pre-final year to go through some of the basic books. But I wouldn't recommend a full-fledged preparation during college, because at least according to me, college is the time that we explore our different areas of interests. And it can be that because let's say you have a summer internship, I'd say give your 100% in that summer internship. See if you like something there, if you have some interest there. So take all the opportunities while you're in college. And once you leave college, once you're done with it, then you can suppose you say that, okay, I'm not it. I've explored different areas. I think civil services is the one for me. Then you can start preparing after your college. And because civil services requires the long-term duration of at least 2-3 years, our motivation should be in the right place. And for that, our why you're preparing for this exam should be very clear. So I think I would say take your time and decide. It doesn't have to be very early, and having an early start doesn't necessarily mean you'll clear the exams. It's about how much of effort you can give. So whenever you can give that, you should go for it.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. So your viewpoint.
So yeah,
Okay,
I
ma'am.
largely agree with Akshaya here. I largely agree with what Akshaya has mentioned. But in my case, I started some bit of preparation in my final year. Not pre-final year, in my final year last semester, the semester before PS2. So I started some preparation at that time. But even I think that initial I felt, because once you start preparing properly, only then you can do those things in an efficient manner. What one can do, if someone has made up his or her mind for civil services, say early, I think the best possible thing that can be done is reading good newspapers like Indian Express or Hindu. A habit like that can be cultivated, and that can certainly help over the course of your preparation. Secondly, say assuming you are in your engineering, say second or third year, and you want to prepare for civil services, Even then, I won't recommend doing books like Lakshmikant and other history, political science books. Rather, even if you do your engineering properly, your optional can get prepared. So I think during your engineering days, it's best to focus on your core subjects and also exploring your interests, because sometimes I think life has other plans also. We don't realize that at that point. But I think reading newspaper is enough in college if someone is interested.
I agree that college is the time where we actually start exploring the different domains, the different horizons, and then we properly start to figure out things. So yes, I think that college is the
Absolutely.
time when we properly figure out, and then we can work towards what we want to achieve. And since you mentioned about the newspapers, can you please tell us that what all newspapers one should read, an aspirant should read for general studies or current affairs?
Sure. So, when it comes to newspapers, I mainly relied on Indian Express during the later years of my preparation. Initially, I was reading the Hindu. I would say both newspapers are good when it comes to preparation, but I personally thought that Indian Express, I find it a little more wholesome. They have a very good explained page where you get an insight about like whatever is happening. Since my optional is economics, as I mentioned earlier, I also used to read Live Mint. I think it is also a very good newspaper, but since all of us have some kind of time constraint, I think one newspaper should be read properly, say Indian Express or Hindu, and Mint can be read selectively, like some topics every now and then,
Okay,
like 15,
thanks.
20 minutes a day, something like that. Yeah.
So, ma'am, would you like to add on something about the newspapers?
Prashant Sharma had mentioned most of it, but maybe you can watch some videos on general events of current events and so on, just to increase your general knowledge. But still shouldn't be like the only thing in college. Like you can take some time off and spend about half an hour, 1 hour and analyze them. But I think that should suffice.
Okay,
Okay,
ma'am,
thank
that's
you.
ma'am. Like since Prashant sir also mentioned that his optional subject was economics, like how do you think optional subjects can be like chosen, and how should a candidate go about it?
Okay, so if you look at a lot of general advice that goes around regarding APC, people go for those subjects which are boring. But in my opinion, that is one should not do that. One should go for a subject that they have interest in, and also there's enough resources available to guide them throughout the preparation. There should be toppers who have cleared it. There should be enough guidance available in the market for that particular material available for the market for that particular option, and you should have interest on it. Only then will you be able to sustain the preparation for a long period of time, which you have to, like I had mentioned before, it's like around at least 2 3 years. So if you have to maintain consistency and prepare well, then you need interest as a major criteria. Because the truth is, optional can make or break your score and make or break your ultimate rank as well. So one should be very careful in choosing your optional subject and take your time and choose the option which you have interest in. And then you can even look at the previous year questions that have been asked in that particular optional to see if you can answer that. So for Prashant Sharma's case, you chose economics because, if I'm not wrong, that's your graduation, no? Or you had some previous interest in it. So, like in my case, it was psychology, and I was like very interested in psychology, so I took it up. So it differs basically for everyone. One should find out where their interest lies. So, by
That's
the way, I
great, ma'am.
have yeah. So, if anyone's interested in psychology, they can check out some of the material that's available in psychology, because I have personally scored very high in psychology this year. So it proves that interest is the major criteria for choosing matter.
That's great, ma'am. Prashant sir, like, would you add something to this?
Again, I mostly agree with what she said. I would like to emphasize on the interest part particularly, because I'm from Triple E, but despite that, I have opted for economics as my option. I don't really have a background in it except the fact that I opted for a few open electives that we have in BITS.
Hmm.
Other than that, I didn't have a background. So I think I went by my interest, and as Akshay rightly mentioned, that helped me sustain my preparation. To an extent, I got bored studying humanities subject because, as we talked about transition, So economics was something which kept me interested in the whole preparation, because economics paper one I thought was very scientific when it comes to its approach. So again, I think interest is certainly a factor, but interest shouldn't be the sole factor. Somehow you also need to consider the kind of marks people have been getting in those options, the potential to score, and the material as well. So all of these factors combined, I think, ensure like we make the right choice, I guess.
Okay.
Never just one factor, yeah.
That's a great insight, sir. Thanks.
And also, there is a huge craze for this exam, for this examination UPSC. Every year, the number of people who appear for this particular exam keeps on rapidly increasing. So, what are the points where people go wrong, and what is the right approach for being more efficient while preparing?
Okay.
Would you like me to take that first?
So I'll take this first. Maybe I think there are a few mistakes everyone makes, and I can talk about some mistakes I made, because I failed also in this exam sometimes on some occasions, and I realized some things that shouldn't have happened. Maybe one mistake that many people make right now, I think it's the age of information overload. There is way too much information available, and like say 6-7 years back, you open the internet, you search something, you will see hundreds of things. UPSC, this note is available, that note is available. So one mistake people often make is get overwhelmed by all the material that is available, try to check out too many things, and ultimately get confused. So that just isn't the right way, I feel, of preparing. So I think that is one mistake that is happening. Second mistake, although this wasn't a personal mistake of mine, because aptitude is fairly strong in my case, but recently many people have been faltering at CSAT level. This is a trend which is being observed lately. So ignoring CSAT is also a mistake which many aspirants are making. And thirdly, I feel we have two stages in the exam, particularly the written part, prelims and mains. I think both things require a different approach when it comes to preparation. So another mistake which I've seen people make is focus too much on prelims and ignore the mains preparation. And when they end up clearing prelims, somehow, mains also lags a bit. So, equal focus on both is also required, I feel. I think Akshaya can add on some of the points also.
Prashant has mentioned most of the mistakes that people usually make. I'd like to mention one more point, that usually people give this exam, one attempt, two attempts, and so 3 attempts, and so on. So they usually don't correct the mistakes that they've done in the previous attempt. So they expect that marks would be, they'd somehow get higher marks, which is not true. And every time they give the exam, they should look at their mark sheet and see where their weaknesses are. So one should definitely improve on those areas, and only when they improve, they'll see their score increasing in the subsequent attempt. Otherwise, it's just years and years of doing the same thing and not getting results out of it. So one should be aware, like self-aware in this exam. Where exactly is your strength lying? So in my case, I was very strong with the optional. I was sure that I'll get good marks, and that can help me in my final score, and it worked also on it much more than the previous attempt. So one should be aware of their mistakes and then improve upon what they did before. That's why preparing efficiently then would be to correct on these mistakes, to focus on conceptual clarity and not just do a lot of do the same thing over and over again. Focusing on conceptual clarity, discussing with friends and or a group, definitely practicing answer writing and so on. So these kind of things will help them be more efficient in it.
As you mentioned that you were more aware of, like being more aware for this particular exam helps you to get a better score. So you have given the interview 2 times. So what did you learn from your previous experience that helped you in your second attempt?
Okay. Like I mentioned, I was aware of my strengths and weaknesses. So for me, it was I had to improve on my GS papers more than my last attempt, the general studies papers. So overall, I worked on the content of those GS papers. I looked at toppers, what did they do, how did the topper write their answers, where did they prepare from, and so on. And I prepared my own notes and answer writing accordingly. And and I understood that I was already strong in my optional subject, and I needed that extra push to go towards, a much better score. So I found out what could be done extra. I spoke to the topper of that year in 2020 when I had given, and I had asked what did she do to get that extra, because it's all about those extra marks in mains. Every question gives you, let's say, half a mark extra if you do something different. Totals up to a lot of extra marks, right? At least 20 marks overall because there are two papers. So these kind of things matter a lot. And interview itself, also I was aware of the interview because I had personally scored 179 in 2020 and I scored 173 this year. So I followed the same strategy because I was sure about what kind of preparation is needed. So the 2020 attempt, the one that I had given before, gave me a clear idea of where I stood in this exam and where all I had to improve on. And I largely built on what I did before to do that extra to get here.
That was indeed quite insightful, and it was lovely to hear your experience in the interviews.
My next question is to Prashant sir. That sir, you have cleared the exam in 2020 as well. Why did you decide to do it and reappear a couple of years later?
Yeah. So yes, I cleared the exam in 2020 also, and I got the service. I joined the service last year only, 6 June 2022. Despite getting a service earlier, I decided to give the exam again because although the service I got, that is a service of my choice, I liked that service, but again, that was somehow 7th on my preference list last time around. So, to get a better service, I think I was a little more ambitious when it comes to giving the exam. That is one reason, big reason why I attempted the exam. And second, I had attempts left also. So I thought, why not go for another shot? Because obviously, when we give the exam, we usually aspire for top 3-4 services. So to be very honest, that was the main reason.
Clearly shows your passions about the services. So my next question is, how did you manage corporate life and this question is for Akshaya ma'am as well. How did you manage corporate life and preparation together?
So okay, fine. So yes, I gave the exam along with my job. So how I managed it. So basically, I had prepared for the exam earlier also. Some level of base I had because I was preparing before I started working also. So that is one thing which helped me personally because a certain level of base was built. Apart from that, it was all about proper time management. I had to utilize my weekends properly when it comes to studies. And at the same time, on my weekdays also, I tried to ensure that I get like 4 or 5 hours. I tried to read newspaper during my office hours because a lot of my office life was in the COVID time. So I was working from home. So I was able to save travel time also. So I tried to read the newspaper during my work hours only. And after that, I generally slept for a while after my office. I think that refreshed me and used to study from say 9:30 to 1:30, something like that at night. So I think when one wants to do something, that time is always available. It's about utilizing it. That's what I think. Go to Akshaya.
Yeah, I also would agree with Prashant Sharma. So I was also working and preparing in my first attempt. But then I was also attending classes. So I was attending GS classes and optional classes. So GS classes I used to go in the weekends, and optional classes I used to go after I finished my work during the day. So the optional classes used to be sometime in the evening, and that used to be like 3 times a week. And the other 2 days I used to sit and study for the rest in office. And I also use the office time for reading the newspapers, watching topper videos, like to understand what they did, and looking at topper copies and so on. So it is about time management, like Prashant Sharma said, but it's extremely hectic to manage with a corporate job because the demands of the corporate job are different. Like you have to be there, and there are no clear work times in a corporate job, so for longer periods of time, and your targets keep on pushing if you have to stay for longer in the office. So these kind of small things matter. That is why at times people say that you can prepare better with a government job because you can take leaves more liberally, especially between pre and mains when you need them. You can take study leaves if you're already in the service. You can take EOLs as well for a year if you're in the So these kind of things can be looked at. But with a corporate private job, it's very difficult in my opinion. Can be done, but still, it is difficult.
Yeah.
Definitely, ma'am. Definitely. Uh, so, apart from this, how should one manage time and allocate to different stages of preparation? Like, since you mentioned you already had a limitation of time with your corporate job, with the available time, how did you manage it with watching materials, like reading material and solving papers and mock papers?
So if you're asking about the timeline that one should follow during this preparation, uh, initially when one is starting, they should do both prelims and mains together. There are common topics as well, so one should ideally do both of them together. And if they're attending classes, then that also helps in building a base. And when after one does that, they should exclusively focus on the for at least 2 3 months. And if they've joined again some kind of coaching, then that also helps in building a base. All of this is about building a base where you read concepts and make notes. And once the prelims is approaching, at least 2 months before the prelims, they should start exclusively focusing on the prelims. And honestly, the paper's getting tougher every year, so you can't take a risk in prelims. And like Prashant Sharma mentioned, CSAT is also getting difficult. So you have to keep at it at least for prelims. 2 months before prelims, you should definitely do prelims. And between prelims and mains, then you can start taking up mains again, where you will look at, you can make short notes if you want to, based on the notes that you've already made before. Read your optional and join test series now. I would say that one can join test series, mains test series, and before that they can look at proper copies to see, because a lot of people join test series very early and they don't know what to write because their concepts are not built at an early stage. But once they cross prelims, they have built some kind of base. They've seen toppers, like what they have done, what works in the exam. So once you know that, you can start writing between prelims and mains. You can start giving test series then and improve based on the feedback that's given in test series. And once mains gets over, they can focus on the interview after mains. That should suffice.
Prashant sir, would you like to add anything?
Yeah. So this question is about time management, right? So when it
Yes.
comes to time management, I think it's about proper assessment of your abilities first, where you stand. I think first one should know that. And based on that, how long one needs to give time to different aspects of the exam, be it prelims, be it mains. Even in mains, there are many subjects, right? Like every stage has many subjects, GS1, GS2, history, this and that. So it's about assessing like what you're strong and weak at. And I personally used to make a timetable in Excel that one timetable was for long-term plans, one was for like short-term, everyday plan. So long term, I roughly used to estimate how long I'll take in each subject. Say, I'm doing history, I had some idea that I'll take 15 days in revising history. Say I'm doing political science, I had some idea I'll take this much time. And based on that, I used to like have a daily schedule also. So I think personally that helped me a bit. I tried to make realistic schedules rather than very fancy ones which I know won't be achieved. Many of us tend to do that mistake. We make schedules which are really not achievable. So that is something I did personally, which helped me. And yeah, I mean, it's about assessing yourself and your goals, because everyone is at a different stage of preparation and time management varies according to. So for example, if I'm strong in economics, for example, so I will devote less time to economics, more time to something else where I think I'm lacking. So it's about balancing those things, apart from what Akshaya has mentioned.
Indeed, sir. That's a great insight for all the aspirants who are watching.
What was your process of practicing mock tests? Is it more beneficial to attempt them under stipulated time constraints or topic-wise?
Yeah. So mock test, to be very honest, in my previous attempts, when it comes to, okay, I'll divide it into two parts, prelims mock test and mains mock test. Okay. So prelims mock tests, what I've observed is that one should adhere to the time constraints when it comes to prelims mock tests. But lately, the mock tests in prelims have been somewhat out of sync with how the actual paper has been. So, to be honest, I just see it as a revision paper only, nothing more than that. When it comes to prelims mock specifically, I think doing past year papers helps the most when it comes to prelims. When it comes to mains, I think mocks are very helpful. To some extent, they are synchronized with the real exam also to a greater extent. I'm not saying they are completely synchronized with them, but to a greater extent they are. So I think one should adhere to the time constraint rather than attempting 1 or 2 questions here and there. It's always better to do all the 20 questions. And it's fine if initially, you're taking 3 or 30 minutes or something. It's absolutely fine. But eventually you have to get there. So I think writing those like papers completely, that really helps. And when should one do them? I think between prelims and mains, it's good enough to attempt mocks, because I think that's the time we are most serious when it comes to mains preparation, and there's sufficient time to write like 15-20 mocks in my opinion. So like one could do it then also. And if someone is really feels his or her answer writing is lagging, so like one can do that kind of an effort even before that. So as I mentioned again, like where you stand, it depends a lot on that.
Akshaya ma'am, would you like
I
to add?
would, yeah. I would agree with what Prashant Sharma said about mock tests. And for prelims, yes, it's getting very the paper is getting very different from what coaching schools have been giving out. So, if I would suggest like just looking at the previous year questions and discussing with somebody about what your thought process was, learning techniques to solve the prelims questions. All of this helps in prelims. But for mains, you have to definitely write. You have to give a test series. But you can give a test series as in a time limit for mains. But topic-wise, mastery in prelims is also important, for which you can use the previous year questions in mains. So I would suggest after prelims, you take up previous year questions and mains, try and answering them, see if you have enough content on them, enough value addition and so on, so that you have a good grip over the topic. And then you go write a full length mock test series in a time limit to see if you can deliver good content within the stipulated time or not. And between pre and mains is like Prashant Sharma said, that's it.
Also, one more thing, that how can one get adequate writing practice for the mains exam after qualifying prelims? And how many essays would be sufficient for this particular purpose?
So to write enough test series, to get enough writing practice, you have to do test series. Although for some people it's not needed, but I would say like engineers in general, we're not good at writing a lot of paragraphs or points, so might as well don't test series. But attempt previous year questions, like I said before. So that gives you an idea of what introduction, what body, what conclusion you would write, and enhance your notes as well based on if you have some deficits in knowledge. So then write answers in test series. That's enough. That's enough writing practice, because one can only improve marginally in all of this. Can't entirely change your writing practice, writing style, and it doesn't work like that. In my opinion, you make some errors, you get feedback, general feedback, and then you improve marginally, and that's enough for you to score high marks. And essay, I would say like write essay every once a week. That really helps. One can even look at topper strategy. Anudit Durishetty is one person who has written a detailed strategy on essay. Essay writing, so one can go through all of that. One, because in all of these subjects, one should go through what has been done before. Like look at topper's strategy, look at topper's copies, and then look at PYQs, and then
I apologize again for the technical issues, sir. We'll now be going forward with some audience questions that we've got in the comment section, and then we'll be like, then we can wrap it up. So, sir, like this question is for both of you. If someone wants to pursue UPSC, is starting early a good thing?
I think to some extent both of us have taken it up earlier also. As we mentioned earlier, I think starting early, we don't really support it, because early means I'm assuming you are in your school or college days. It's also important to explore your core subject, explore your interests. But at the same time, if someone has inclination towards civil services, then as I mentioned earlier, reading newspaper can be a good start. And if someone really thinks that I want to prepare now, so yes, one can start maybe doing optional also. But again, too much preparation early leads to burnout in later phases. That is harmful.
Ma'am?
yeah, I concur with Prashant Sharma on this. Terrible. So one has to take it, take it a little more cautious manner.
Okay. Okay. There's another question about how to answer the question when you are preparing. Like, what should be the pointers or what should be the mindset while answering a question, be it in the subjective exam or during the UPSC interview.
Mindset while answering the question. Well, if you've prepared, if you have a good grip over the concept, and if you've tried all the PYQs and you've written test series and all that, while writing the answer in the exam, okay, before I say this, there's a lot of time constraint in the exam. Writing in 3 hours is as such a challenge. So one doesn't get a lot of time to sit and think on what exactly they have to write. So they have to be very prepared before writing the actual exam. So while they're writing the exam, the maximum focus should be on to translate the concepts that they know into the paper, while also having a neat presentation, while making a distinct introduction, body, conclusion, dividing the answer properly, answering all parts of the question, and also making some sort of diagrams if they can. If that's something they can do, then that can also help. So this should be the mindset for mains and for the interview, because we've prepared a lot on our resume which we submit. It's called the detailed application. Once we've prepared about ourselves, once we know enough about current affairs and we've discussed it, the mindset should be conversational in the interview, because they're looking for people who can, have in-depth knowledge in wide areas and can answer analytical questions and be honest and so on. So one has to take it in a conversational manner in the interview.
In addition to what Akshaya has mentioned, I would like to highlight one specific thing. It's important to address the demand of the question. Sometimes what happens is that something else is being asked and we tend to divert a bit, answering something else. So understanding the demand of the question is very important, and understanding the last statement is also very important. Like, they'll give some random statement, like any statement, and at the end, if they mention discuss, discuss has to be answered differently. Critically analyze has to be answered differently. So mindset also depends a lot on what is being asked.
Okay, sir, that's great. That's going to be a tip for the aspirants who are watching us. Also, I had a question for myself that can you share with us what were the roles played by your family members to support you during your long and rigorous journey? Because the recent years have been very tough for everybody. There has been a pandemic all around the globe. So how was your support system during the preparation phase?
I would like to say that family supported me immensely. Firstly, my father. So my father is also in the services. He's in income tax department. So he prepared along with me, you could say. He did like notes for me. He always used to highlight specific things from newspapers that you can read this article, that article. So he helped me immensely academically also. And coming to emotional support also, like my dad was always there, my mother was always there, my sister was there, and all of them helped me immensely. I think I never felt down during the course of my preparation because of the support I got from them. And not just family, I would also like to mention some close friends of mine whom I could call anytime, share my things. So they also played like immense role. I mean, these friends were in the preparation cycle also. Some of the friends from BITS who were not preparing, they also helped me. So,
Yeah, I would also like to say that was the family who did everything actually. Everything in the sense, they're the ones who gave the emotional support. They're the ones who encouraged me. They're the ones who said, keep at it. Because it's very easy to start, a lot of energy, but to continue, you need immense willpower. I think both of us have, gone through this exam over the course of a few years. So you need to keep fighting every day. That's the reality of this exam actually. Like every day is difficult because there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding this exam. And you have to keep up the motivation, you have to keep up your hard work. One day you'll just be exhausted with all the work, and next you have to wake up and do the same thing again. So you need a good support system which understands you, understands your demands, and encourages you, keeps you motivated, keeps you, grounded as well during this preparation. It's very easy to lose your motivation. It's very easy to give up actually. So keep a high level of output, you need a good support system. So in my case, it was my family, a few friends, one of my closest friend, and even Prashant Sharma here is who's one of my dear friends. He's also supported me throughout. So I think I think you need a support system. One can't do this alone, and the support system can even come from toppers who cleared this exam before. So at the start of the talk, I had mentioned BITSians who have mentored me, right? So there have been um, there have been support coming from all of these sides, but parents are everything in my opinion. So if you have parents who encourage you, then you already have a very very good support system.
Okay, ma'am, that's great. There's one final question for both of you. That how has your life at and your how has your time at BITS helped you in the preparation, and where do you see yourself in the upcoming years? Prashant, sir, you can go first.
Yeah, I'll start then. I think BITS has been immensely helpful. It has changed me as a person, I think. To be very honest, I used to be somewhat introverted before I came to BITS, but I think I opened up, met a lot of people, learned something from everyone in BITS. And the kind of exposure I got in BITS, there are people from all parts of the country. The things I learned about different cultures, I think that helped me a lot during the course of my civil service exam preparation also. Because a lot of things I was already aware of because of being in BITS. Plus the kind of atmosphere we have there, I think it is very conductive, helped me a lot. The kind of confidence I gained from college that helped me in the personality test, I could say, that part of it. And even when it comes to mains, apart from all the good things I mentioned, BITS, the curriculum is also challenging academically. So I was somewhat used to the grilling we have during the course of a semester, particularly around the last part of semester when the compre is approaching. Lab exams also come up and lots of assignments have to be submitted. Then the exams are also coming. So I think that prepared me for UPSC also, because here also we face a similar situation when during the time of our mains. So I think everything helped. There were some tangible benefits and some intangible benefits.
So to me, the time at BITS is the time that I became a confident person. That I started believing in myself, that I can do whatever I put my mind to. So I think this confidence carries on beyond BITS, and because we graduate from an institute that is well known, it's a great has a good brand name. We also know that even if in the worst case we can find a job, it's not all gloomy. So this kind of mindset you get after graduating from BITS, and because you've had exposure, like Prashant Sharma said, you have a broader mindset. You know that you can do things which you put your mind to. You know you're a hardworking person. Uh, you know that you can give it your best shot without worrying about it. So I think bits changes your mindset, and the kind of people that you interact with, they also continue because they are your friends for life. So they also encourage you, they also help you out, and yeah, so it's a great support system that you've built right from BITS itself. You build a support system, you build a mindset that carries on to the rest of the journey. So this is very important, at least in my life. I think everything changed after BITS. I'm pretty sure that for everyone it's the same story. No matter the professional life they go on to, like I said before, you find BITSians everywhere, so you can use their help as well, uh, looking for guidance and making it better.
That's great, ma'am. This is going to be a motivation for all of us BITSians. I currently being a student who is interested in UPSC myself. This is a really good session that motivated me. And so that brings us to the end of the session, one in which I'm sure all of us must have got to know something new after hearing it directly from our alumni. So on behalf of the BITS Hyderabad, we would like to thank Akshaya ma'am and Prashant sir for their time and valuable input. we hope that we can continue to achieve more, they can continue to achieve more success in their lives, and we can have the pleasure of hosting them again soon. We'd also like to thank our audience for joining us today. We had some technical issues. For that, I apologize to the speakers and to the audience as well. And we hope to bring you more such sessions. Till then, take care. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was great being here.
Thanks.